game. Preview today's starting pitching matchup. Give you our keys to the game. Plus, we'll hear from manager Craig Stammen. From the Padres Radio Network, here's Sam Levitt.
San Diego Padres baseball coming up on 97.3 The Fan and the Padres Radio Network. As today, the Padres take on the New York Mets in the second game of a three-game series. Our starting pitching matchup today for the Mets, left-hander Zach Thornton, and for the Padres, left-hander Robbie Ray. Hi again, everybody. Sam Levitt with you inside our San Diego studios. First pitch coming up at 4:10 p.m. here on the West Coast. Coming up in the next 50 minutes, we have a lot to do as always here on our pregame coverage. You'll hear from Padre manager Craig Stammen. We hear from today's starting pitcher Robbie Ray. We check in with the Padres radio booth in just a little bit and much, much more. But first, it's time to set the table. Brought to you by Fraser Farms Market. Set your table with the highest quality of natural and organic products from Fraser Farms Market, a San Diego original since 1971 with 3 locations, La Mesa Vista and Oceanside, and at FraserFarmsMarket.com. Well, a matchup in New York between two really hot teams right now. Since July 26th, the top 2 records in the National League belong to the Padres and the New York Mets. Padres come in 67-59. They've won 17 of their last 23 games. They entered today sitting in the National League's final wild card spot. They're 2-2 so far on this road trip to Cleveland and New York. Padres, though, trying to avoid dropping a series for the first time in their last 8 series. We'll get into that in just a moment, why that is the case. The Mets, meanwhile, come in 57-69. They're playing some good baseball right now. As we said, they've won 4 in a row. They're now over 500 since interim manager Andy Green took over for Carlos Mendoza, who the Mets let go earlier this summer. Well, we had the series opener in New York at Citi Field last night. We had really a weird beginning to this series. Let's rewind.
Did you miss what happened in the last Padres game? Let's take a look back with our Padres Rewind on the Padres Radio Network.
Right-hander Nolan McLean took the mound for the Mets in the top of the first inning. The Padres rallied against him. Jake Cronenworth singled. Manny Machado singled. That brought up Ty France. He singled into right, but Mets right fielder Carson Benj threw out Jake Cronenworth at home plate. Jackson Merrill dug in next with runners still on first and second.
0-2, Merrill swings, rips it into right field. That's a base hit. Machado rounding third on his way. Benj comes up throwing again. Here's the play at the plate. He is out! Benj gets 2 here in the first. And that's it for the Padres in the top half of inning number 1.
Yeah, back-to-back plays. Benj throwing out a runner at home plate. Bottom half of the first inning, Walker Buehler took the mound, and somehow still a scoreless game. He got in trouble. A.J. Ewing hit a leadoff single for New York. Francisco Lindor walked. That brought up Bo Bichette.
And Bichette hits it on the ground to the right side. France dives, can't get there. Neither can Cronenworth. It's into right field. Ewing rounding third. He'll score. The throw goes to third. Not in time. RBI single Bo Bichette. And on his bobblehead night, he's given the Mets a 1-0 lead.
Luis Robert Jr. would drive in another run to make it 2-0 Mets. Padres trailed 2-0 going to the second. They loaded the bases with nobody out. A walk, a hit batter, and another walk. With 1 out and the bases still loaded, Fernando Tatis Jr. came just a few feet away from hitting a grand slam. Instead, it was a sac fly to left. That made it 2-1. The Padres still had runners on first and second. 2 men away. Jake Cronenworth at the plate.
0-1 on the ground through the left side and a base hit. Bogarts rounding third on his way. Here's Ewing's throw to the plate. He is out at home. Unbelievable. For the 4th time in 2 innings, the Padres are out at home.
A crazy game through an inning and a half. At that point, the Padres had 5 hits, 2 walks, a hit batter. They had 3 runners thrown out at home. They also had 1 forced out at home. And most importantly, just 1 run on the scoreboard. From there, the game really settled down. That was thanks to both starting pitchers. Buehler went 6. Nolan McLean went 6 for the Mets. The Mets bullpen put together 3 scoreless innings, and that was it. A really odd game where the first inning and a half told you all you needed to know pretty much. Mets win it 2-1 in the series opener, and now the Padres try to bounce back in game 2 of this 3-game set. Let's go to Flushing, Queens in New York City.
Let's take a trip up to the Padres broadcast booth for a deep dive on today's matchup with Jesse Agler in our Padres game preview on the Padres Radio Network.
Well, Jesse, the old adage is when you show up to the ballpark every day, you never quite know what you might see, and it felt like that in the first couple of innings in yesterday's game. Now that we had a day to reflect on it, how do you look at what happened yesterday and just how weird yesterday's game was, not just in the sense of what happened with the Padres getting so many guys thrown out at home plate, but also the way the game was sort of decided in the first couple of innings, and then pretty much nothing else happened for the next 7 innings.
Yeah, I mean, look, if it wasn't the Padres losing because of it, it would have been one of my favorite games ever.
Yeah.
You know me well enough to know I live for nonsense like that and for oddities like that. And it was as nonsensical and odd as it possibly gets in baseball. And I mean, it was a treat. Look, a good outfield assist, to home is really, it's a remarkable feat of athleticism, right? I mean, we've been so spoiled over the years to see Fernando uncork some, otherworldly throws from right field home. Of course, nobody runs on him anymore, so we don't get to see it all that often. But, some of the great baseball highlights are throws from right field. Probably the greatest throw in Major League history, Roberto Clemente, right from the right field corner, that we've seen so many times. Getting to see Ichiro make a great throw. Yoenis Cespedes in Oakland had a great throw. And Fernando, as we said, in the Padre uniform. So, to me, those are some of the great moments in baseball history. And so to get to see 3 in 2 innings and for them to be executed the way they were last night was really remarkable. I'm not over it. I'll be honest. That was your question. I'm still kind of blown away sitting in the same seat, 25 hours later or whatever. That's what we saw. And then, if you watch enough baseball, I don't know that you're all that surprised that was how the game was decided.
Right.
Yeah, I think Tony said it in the bottom of the 2nd inning yesterday. He kind of hinted hey, they might look back at this and say, boy, that was the chance. And, unfortunately, the game is really kind of quirky and cruel sometimes. And, if you miss an opportunity like that so often in a game, it will not present another opportunity. And sure enough, Nolan McLean settled in. Walker Buehler settled in. That's a tough loss for Walker Buehler. And, you look back and you go, man, that's an odd, tough way to lose a game. But yeah, that is baseball sometimes, I guess.
Jesse, moving forward to today's game, left-hander Robbie Ray on the mound for the Padres will be his 3rd start in the brown and gold after getting traded to San Diego from San Francisco at the trade deadline. Jesse, I think it's fair to say he's been okay so far. The start against the Astros, 5 innings, 4 runs, 7 hits allowed. Start against the Brewers, went 4 innings, 2 runs given up. He's walked quite a few guys combined in the 2 starts. What will you be looking for from Robbie Ray in his 3rd start as a Padre?
I hope this doesn't sound, defeatist or anything like that, but I just look for Robbie to keep the Padres in the game. And look, what that looks like tonight might be different than what it looked like against the Brewers the other day, and it might be different than what it looks like in his next start, presumably against the Pirates, I guess, right? And so it's not necessarily at this point for me with Robbie a numerical thing. It's a very contextual thing. I'm not asking him to head up this rotation. I'm asking him to keep the Padres in the game. I'm not even asking him to give me 6. I'm not going to get greedy. I think he's capable of that. I do think at some point we're going to see him give the Padres 6 or 7 innings, and that's going to be a great day, and we will celebrate that. But I think his role in this rotation right now is to give the Padres a chance to win. And like I said, that might be different today than it was last time. And, now that you've sort of fortified the rotation a little bit, that you have Casey Mize to go with Buehler and King, those are the guys I kind of expect to, hey, I need 6 out of you more often than not. And then, you've got your sort of up in the air spot. You've got the Robbie Ray spot. Those are the days you can flex your bullpen muscle a little bit more aggressively. And again, I'm not trying to suggest Robbie's not capable of giving you more, but for me, that's what I'm looking for out of Robbie Ray. You mentioned the walks. It's not just a thing, those 2 starts with the Padres. It's been a thing all year with Robbie Ray. So I don't know that that's going to magically change here in the last month and a half of the season. Look, he's walked more guys than anybody in the major leagues this year. So it's just kind of how the season is going. And when you're walking that many guys, it's hard to work super deep into games. But I do think he's sort of got that veteran guile and ability to keep them in games, to manage those walks better than pretty much anybody else in the league. He knows how to do that. And so, again, all right, you're going to issue the walks. You're going to have traffic. Get out your cones. Get out your flashlight. Put on your reflective vest. Manage that traffic and keep the Padres in the game.
Jesse, just to touch on the Mets here quickly, Zach Thornton on the mound today for the Mets. He's been a good young left-hander so far. We'll dive into him a little bit later. But I think this Mets series may be a little bit of a good reminder when we talk about the remaining schedule. You look at it, you see a lot of teams with losing records on the remaining schedule for the Padres, but that doesn't always tell the full story because the Mets are playing some of their best baseball right now. Their offense has actually been much more productive than what it was last night. This is an interesting couple of games against a Mets team that is playing well, and they've got some young players that certainly have a lot to play for right now.
Yeah, I mean, look, they went into yesterday winners of 9 of 12. They've been averaging 5.5 runs per game in that time. And then, as you noted, Padres held them to 2 runs yesterday. They've also been pitching well. This is as good as the Mets have been playing in 2026. This is their peak right now. And so you're right. Look, it's the adage of, it's not who you play, it's when you play them. And it is, very easy to look down and say, by record, the Padres have the 4th easiest remaining schedule in 2026 or whatever it is. But it's never that simple. It's never that straightforward. We know that. And then also, look, you get down to the very end of the year, and maybe you got that, series at Coors Field, and maybe the Rockies are going to be feeling a little spunky, right? Maybe the Pods are going to be in a situation where they're able to clinch something that week. And the Rockies, kind of a young team, are going to think to themselves, you know what? Not in our house. You run into situations like that, too. So you got to be ready for anything. Nobody's going to roll over and die, right, most nights. And so you got to go out there and play good baseball. Last night was a really good game. I'm not particularly, knocked over by what happened yesterday. I don't think it's something that's going to cause any sort of long-term issue. It was a good baseball game. The Mets executed some really good baseball plays, and now on we go.
All right, well said, Jesse, as always. We'll talk to you and Tony coming up at the top of the hour. Thanks so much.
You got it, Sam.
All right, Jesse Agler joining us on our EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show here on the Padres Radio Network as we get ready for first pitch coming your way at 4:10 p.m. here on the West Coast, the middle game of this 3-game set between the Padres and the Mets. Yeah, just a weird game yesterday. Padres losing 2-1. I think the Padres, based on the way they've played lately, at least for me, they've earned benefit of the doubt. Let's see if they can bounce back tomorrow, have a better showing, especially offensively here today. Again, the Padres, like we said earlier, they have still, even after last night, won 17 of their final 23 games. When we return, we will take our first look at the Padres lineup. We'll hear from Padre manager Craig Stammen. We'll tell you who's hot, who's not. We'll take a look at some headlines from around the major leagues, including what's a really odd story with the Arizona Diamondbacks and Ketel Marte right now, and a story that, does have a little bearing on the Padres because the D-backs are a team that the Padres are battling with neck and neck right now for a postseason spot. D-backs 1 game behind the Padres on the outside looking in as far as the NL wildcard picture entering today. So we'll get to that. I go one-on-one with Robbie Ray, today's starting pitcher, a little bit later as well. First pitch coming up at 4:10 from New York City. This is the Padres Radio Network. Moving and grooving on a Tuesday as we get ready for Padres baseball. First pitch coming your way at 4:10 p.m. Robbie Ray on the mound for the Padres here today. Left-hander, young left-hander, rookie left-hander Zach Thornton on the mound for the New York Mets. Couple of southpaws going at it. First pitch coming your way at 4:10 p.m. in the middle game of this 3-game series. We'll hear from Craig Stammen in just a moment. We'll take you around the horn, give you some headlines from around the major leagues. I also talk with Robbie Ray coming up in a little bit as well. As always, our pregame coverage is brought to you by EcoWater SoCal, keeping it soft since 1925. Visit EcoWaterSoCal.com or call 760-350-3338. That's 760-350-3338. Taking a look at the Padres lineup here today, looks like this. Fernando Tatis Jr. in right field leading off. Luis Rengifo in left field batting second. Manny Machado at third base batting third. Ty France at first base batting cleanup. Jackson Merrill in center field batting fifth. Xander Bogaerts at shortstop batting sixth. Austin Hayes getting the start at DH today against the left-hander batting seventh. Freddie Fermin doing the catching batting eighth. And Jake Cronenworth at second base batting ninth with, again, Robbie Ray on the hill. With that in mind, let's go to New York City, hear from the Padres skipper.
Let's pull up a seat in a manager's office and hear from Padres skipper Craig Stammen. Served up by Sinley Food. If you've had better chicken, you must be a rooster.
Craig, we start with Robbie Ray. Last outing, it seemed like used up a lot of pitches in 3-2 counts and, just wasn't the most efficient outing. Sometimes that just happens. Was that just one of those outings where it just seemed like foul ball, next thing you know, pitch count rising?
Yeah, I think his past indicates that that's not always the case.
So nothing that was strategically done inappropriately in the last outing. It was just one of those games where that happened. In other words, in an attempt to try to be more efficient for this game.
Yeah, Robbie's a accomplished major league pitcher and has shown the ability to go deep in games. That's why we acquired him, to be one of those guys that can go deep in games and give us a quality start and then hand it over to the bullpen.
Yeah. You going up against the left-hander today. We've seen some of these guys in Arizona. Pratt presented a little bit of a challenge, but you came back, made some nice adjustments against Drake. Is that something that can carry over into what might be a similar guy, just in terms of the left-hander without the overpowering fastball?
Yeah, every starting pitcher presents their own, attack plan towards our hitters and issues that we have to overcome. And, we try to come up with a game plan ahead of time and do our best to handle that. But every pitcher's a little bit different. You can bucket them into similarities, but, all pitches are different once you get in the box and see what's coming at you.
Yeah, Austin Hayes getting a chance to DH today. Just a great opportunity for him to get some at-bats and try to stay as sharp as possible.
Yeah, we brought him on our team to hit against lefties. So, you'll see him a lot against some lefty starters, and tonight's one of them. So he's in there, and I think he showed that first at-bat that he had against the lefty, what he can do, and hope for more of that over the course of the rest of the season.
What Kyle Hart did last night to get out of that jam, he pitched. Those were some really good pitches. I assume you can appreciate that. Guys go out there and pitch.
Yeah, he did great last night. Pitched around some traffic, got a strikeout, got a couple strikeouts when he needed a strikeout. Not an easy thing to do. I think Kyle Hart's, blossoming in front of our eyes the way he's been pitching here lately in a lot of different roles. And last night in the tight ball game, had to keep the deficit where it was for us to get a chance to win. He did a great job.
He's had outings like that in Kansas City where he didn't really get roughed up, but then they scored last night and some other times since then. He's been able to get himself out of it.
Right.
Is that the blossoming you're talking about?
Yeah, and I think that outing, even though ended up not working out for us result-wise, I think everything in that outing indicated that he was still throwing the ball really well. And I think that was proved right since then, and how he's gotten results while still pitching well also.
How do you succinctly put into words the value of a guy who you can go, oh, hey, I need 2 innings to pick up everybody else, or sometimes to help you win. But
yeah, you're right. I think he can do both. The both is what is the super value in it, is you can pitch multiple innings and, hold the lead or the deficit right where it's at. That's a valuable piece coming out of the bullpen. Anybody that can pitch multiple innings in a tight game and keep the game where it's at.
Exciting to see Sabat starting his rehab stint.
Yeah, it's good. He was a big piece of us having some success when he came up. Provided a little bit of a spark. We remember the bunts that he laid down and attempted bunts that he did almost every single at bat. But, he brings a different element to the game, a different element to our team when he's available. So, good thing he's starting his rehab, and you get him ready and hopefully get him back here soon.
Is there a plan for the next Joe Musgrove step?
I believe his next step is throw his bullpen in between starts and then see how that bullpen goes and then determine when he's going to pitch after that in the game. But so far, so good with Joe. Everything's kind of, on the up and up.
That was Padres manager Craig Stammen earlier today inside the Padres dugout at Citi Field in New York. We'll hear more from Craig on our post-game coverage coming up later on this evening. Sam Levitt back with you inside our San Diego studios. Did get a couple of good updates there on Joe and Samad Taylor. Joe Musgrove, of course. That is Joe Musgrove. Sounds like he will throw a bullpen, and then they'll determine what's next. And we'll talk a little bit more about the injury stuff overall coming up a little bit later in our pregame coverage. What I do find interesting, and just I'm thinking along here, Padres haven't announced what that next step is going to be for Joe yet, right? And he pitched on Friday with El Paso. So that's Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Tomorrow would be the 5th day. So it does make you wonder, I think, just a little bit like, could he possibly come back to the major leagues? And that would be kind of his next start, even if it's a little bit after a 5-day window. So we'll see. Obviously we'll continue to get you updates on Joe and what the progression looks like and what his next step will be, whether that'll be another rehab start in the minor leagues or could that even be a return to the major leagues. He did throw 70 pitches in that last rehab outing with AAA El Paso, and like you heard there, Samad Taylor also beginning a rehab assignment. So some good news, and we'll talk more about injury-related items coming up a little bit later. Right now, let's tell you who's hot, who's not.
Which player is locked in at the dish? Who needs to step up their game? This is Who's Hot, Who's Not. Presented by ASAP Drain Guys and Plumbing, a division of Anderson Commercial, your full-service plumber serving San Diego County.
Hot category, Jake Cronenworth in there. 2 hits last night. He's now hitting .310 during his 7-game hitting streak. Jackson Merrill also remains in the hot category. He's hitting .349 with 9 home runs, 25 RBIs in his last 28 games. In the not category, we continue to put Manny Machado in there. He hit a home run on July 26th. Since then, he's not homered in his last 20 games, batting just .224 in that span with 2 doubles, 2 extra base hits in a span of 20 games. So it's been quiet for Manny. Now, I don't think there's been a ton of attention to it, rightfully so, because the team's been winning, but it's been a quiet little stretch here for Manny last 20 games or so. And Manny in the not category, we'll see if Manny can get it going against the rookie left-hander Zach Thornton on the mound for the Mets today. And that is a look at who's hot, who's not, as we walk you up towards first pitch at 4:10. Let's give you some Major League headlines as we go around the horn.
Let's examine the most important news and the latest information you need to know in the world of Major League Baseball. Sam Levitt takes you around the horn. Presented by Valley View Casino and Hotel. Get ready for Major League winning when you join Valley View Casino and Hotel's Players Club and receive over $200 in free instant offers. Visit valleyviewcasino.com to learn more today.
Now, a really interesting sort of odd story with the Diamondbacks and Ketel Marte right now. The Diamondbacks yesterday putting their all-star second baseman, Ketel Marte, on the restricted list. That was after Marte did not show up for the Diamondbacks game against the Red Sox at Fenway Park last night. This was D-backs manager Torey Lovullo after the game last night. He said, quote, "It's been a crazy day. All I know is that he's dealing with a personal issue. We're just trying to figure that out. He didn't show up today, and he was put on the restricted list. That's as much as I know right now. I'm sure in time we'll start to uncover some information." Now, MLB.com Steve Gilbert has reported that Marte is now heading back to Phoenix for an MRI in his left knee. He was pulled from Friday's game with knee soreness and sat out Saturday. And without getting into the specifics of what Torey Lovullo said pregame today, because I didn't have time to get it down before we came on, I'll just say, in quickly reading it, didn't sound like there was a lot of clarity that the Diamondbacks still know exactly what's going on, or if that was the Diamondbacks' decision for him to go back to Arizona to get an MRI. So there's seemingly a lot of confusion what's going on with Ketel Marte. I hope he's all right. but that's an incredibly important player to the Arizona Diamondbacks, and certainly a situation worth keeping an eye on. Seems like there's a lot unclear still, at least publicly, with what is going on right now with Ketel Marte. Trey Mancini, the American League Comeback Player of the Year in 2021 for his return from colon cancer. He then helped win the 2022 World Series with the Houston Astros. He announced his retirement earlier today from baseball after his latest comeback lasted 5 games earlier this season with the Angels. Two-time All-Star, former Padre C.J. Abrams is quote-unquote not thrilled about moving from shortstop to second base for the Nationals. His agent said, Abrams' agent, Mike Sanders of Rock Nation Sports, said, quote, his priority is to win games and to be a team-first player, so that is what he's going to do. But his agent, Mike Sanders, also adding that Abrams believes himself to be a shortstop in the short term and long term. And he said, quote, I don't think we have a full evaluation yet of how good he can truly be there. So interesting scenario there. Nationals seem to want to move Abrams to second base, and apparently Abrams not exactly thrilled about it. Yankees placing left-hander Max Fried on the 15-day IL yesterday. They did activate Carlos Rodon earlier today. He will start for the Yankees in Baltimore this evening. And that is a look at some of the headlines from around the major leagues. We'll have a full look at the out-of-town scoreboard coming up in just a little bit. When we come back, our keys to today's game, plus my conversation with today's starting pitcher for the Padres. That is left-hander Robbie Ray. That comes your way after this. Our EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show continues here on the Padres Radio Network. Sam Levitt with you inside our San Diego studios. First pitch is coming your way at 4:10 p.m. Game 2 of this 3-game series between the Padres and the Mets. A full look at the out-of-town scoreboard coming your way. Our keys to today's game, plus a conversation with today's starting pitcher for the Padres, Robbie Ray. If you ever wondered what it's like inside the studio during a break, what is it like? in here when you're with me. So during the break, I'm just trying to think right now. I asked Kyle Lovenshire, our studio coordinator, I asked him what his middle name was. I asked him what his girlfriend's middle name was. I asked him to remind me where his dad lives, how often they talk. Do they text? Do they FaceTime? I wanted the whole community. I wanted to know everything about his life in about a 2-minute span. So only I could sit here and be grilling our fantastic studio coordinator about every aspect of his life in a 2-minute span. And you know what? He does a great job. He provides all the answers, and you just don't know what direction I'm going to go in when the mic goes off. You don't know what's going to happen in here. So consider yourself, all of you out there, very lucky that you don't have to sit in the studio with me on a daily basis. That's all I'm going to say. All right, let's take a look at today's injury report.
Who's in? Who's out? This is the Bada Fulkerson Injury Report, presented by San Diego's Bulldog Injury Attorneys, who hope you're never in an accident. But if you are, make Bada Fulkerson the first call you make. Hit them up 24/7 at badafulkerson.com.
Well, we got to some of this a little bit earlier. Good news on Samad Taylor. He has began a rehab assignment with AAA El Paso. That starts today. Jason Adam, who continues to work his way back from the right shoulder strain, he played catch from around 90 feet yesterday in New York, and he said it felt clean. He felt no pain. He said it was really good. So good news on Jason Adam. As far as Joe Musgrove, he threw that 70-pitch, 4 2/3 inning rehab start for AAA El Paso on Friday. We will see what the next step is for Joe. As far as Nick Pivetta, he's continued playing catch, building up, but the throwing program has now moved to the team's complex in Peoria, Arizona. That last rehab start was on August 4th after he threw just 14 pitches, had to come out of the game. No real update yet on Nick on what the next step is going to be. As far as the Mets, Juan Soto still on the IL with a left calf strain. Mets also missing Devin Williams, a right-handed reliever. He's on the IL with a right shoulder strain. Mark Vientos on the IL with a fractured right hand. And those are some of the key injuries for the Mets as they play this series in New York against the Padres. Let's take a full look at the out-of-town scoreboard.
Let's take a trip around the bigs to highlight the scores that matter most with our out-of-town scoreboard. Presented by Jensen Premium Beef Patties. Always a hit for grilling.
Well, with the Padres on the East Coast, we have everything coming up in a little bit or later on this evening. Yankees and the Orioles in Baltimore tonight. Tigers and the Pirates in Pittsburgh. Guardians and, or I should say Giants in Cleveland against the Guardians. Cardinals and the Reds in Cincinnati. Blue Jays and the Rays in Tampa Bay. Marlins and the Phillies in Philadelphia. D-backs and the Red Sox at Fenway, A's and the Royals in Kansas City, Braves visiting the Twins in Minnesota, Mariners in Milwaukee against the Brewers, Nationals visiting the Rangers in Texas, Cubs and the White Sox, all Chicago battle there at Wrigley Field, Angels and the Astros in Houston, Dodgers and the Rockies in Colorado, coming up later on this evening. So again, no games have even started yet because the Padres are on the East Coast. So we'll have much, much more, I promise you, on all those games coming up on our out-of-town scoreboard on our post-game coverage. Well, a big start here tonight for Robbie Ray. First two starts of a Padre have been sort of so-so. We'll dive into them a little bit deeper in a bit, but I caught up with today's starting pitcher, Robbie Ray, inside the Padres clubhouse. You talked about it at the time of the trade. You're familiar to being traded a handful of times. Do you ever get used to the idea of switching teams mid-season?
It's different for sure, as opposed to an off-season trade. But, you after the first one happens, you kind of get you understand how to deal with it a little bit better.
Padres have a left-hander in the bullpen in Adrian Morahone, who's been, as good as anybody from the left side this season, really last couple of years, being his teammate for a week, watching him up close. What are your impressions of Adrian?
He's a very special talent, and he's fun to watch. The stuff is electric coming out of his hand. Maybe one, if not the best changeup I've seen in baseball. So, he's so calm, cool, and collected out there, and it's really fun to watch him pitch.
We're joined by Padres starting pitcher Robbie Ray here on the Padres radio network. Robbie, you get inserted right into the midst of a playoff race. You've been a part of pennant races before over the course of your career. What have you learned about what's important this time of year in particular?
I think it's just focusing on the task at hand, and that's the the game that day. I think that's the biggest thing, is not getting ahead of yourself, not looking down the road and not thinking, we got to win X amount of games. It's like, no, we have to win tonight. And that's the only thing that matters.
Is that kind of present mindset, is that something you've always had or something you've developed over the course of time?
I think it's something that when I was younger, I watched some of the older guys. That's how they went about their business each and every day to just win that day.
Who were some of the older guys that when you were just coming up to the major leagues you looked up to?
Some of the big guys, Zach Greinke, he was a big help for me playing with him in Arizona. Obviously Randy Johnson, he was kind of a mentor to me a little bit when I was in Arizona as well. And, his career kind of speaks for itself. Yeah. So, I'd say those two guys, Verlander, always played with him in my first year in the big leagues, and just watching the way he carries himself, as well as Max Scherzer and David Price. I've been pretty blessed to have a good group of guys to look up to in my career.
To just expand on Randy Johnson a little bit, he's one of those guys, you go back and you look at his baseball reference page, and it is just incredible to see what he did over the course of time. I had a chance to talk to Randy a couple of times when I was working in the minor leagues. He's got this great calm personality too, but man, he was so dominant on the mound.
He was very dominant, and he was very well aware of how good he was. Yeah. And he was fun to watch.
Robbie, you've had a chance to pitch for a number of different teams. In 2021 with Toronto, you had a particularly memorable season, American League Cy Young Award winner, pitching at the top of your game in 2021. What do you recall about that season, what you were doing? I
think the biggest thing was I was just going out and having fun each and every day. And it felt like I was kind of in a flow state the whole year. I didn't really have, I felt really good with my delivery. I felt really good about my attack plan, my game plans every time I was going out. My delivery was repeatable, and that was the biggest thing. So I think as a starting pitcher, to have a delivery that you can repeat over 100 times in a row is key.
You hear starting pitchers in general, talk about repeatability of a delivery. Can you dive in a little bit more as to why that is so important, having mechanics that are repeatable pitch after pitch?
Yeah, I think it's because, you want all of your pitches to come kind of out of the same arm slot, the same delivery, the same arm action, because you don't want to be giving anything away. There are some guys that are very talented and can do other things. Raisel Iglesias comes to mind, where he can kind of throw from 13 different arm slots and comes at you from different angles. But for the most part, as a starting pitcher, it just gives you the comfortability of knowing, if I have the same delivery, the same arm slot, the same pitch mechanics, then everything's going to come out the way I want it to.
Robbie, finish up with this Padres team playing really good baseball right now. You're right there in the postseason mix, just in the first week or so with the club. What has been your general impression of the guys in here at the clubhouse and what they're doing?
Yeah, everybody is super professional, goes about their business each and every day and gets what they need to get done. And there's no panic. I think that's the biggest thing. Is I've been on some teams where, they're scoreboard watching, or they're, trying to see what other teams are doing. They're not really focused on what the task at hand is. And it seems like this team, there's just no panic. It's like, we're going to go out and we're going to play.
That was Robbie Ray inside the Padres clubhouse. Ray making his third start with the Padres here tonight. Let's talk more about that as we give you our keys to tonight's game.
How will the Padres unlock a win today? These are the keys to the game. Presented by Rock and Block Turf and Hardscapes. Beautiful artificial turf that stays green all year long. Trust and experience. The job isn't done until it's done right. See them at rockandblocklandscape.com.
Well, let's start with this. Key number one, a better Robbie Ray. 2 starts with the Padres so far. It's been so-so. 1 against the Astros, 5 innings, 4 runs given up, 7 hits allowed. 1 against the Brewers, 4 innings, 2 runs given up. He's also walked 8 in the 2 starts combined. Now, like Jesse pointed out earlier, Robbie does walk people. That's just part of the deal, but it does feel like could be a little bit better, right? I mean, he had been so good with the Giants before the trade. Now, Ray faced the Mets as a member of the Giants on April 2nd. He allowed 2 runs on 3 hits and 5 1/3 innings in that game. Francisco Lindor, 1 for 9 against Ray in his career, but the one hit a home run. Luis Robert Jr., 1 for 11 against Ray in his career, but the one hit also a home run. A better Robbie Ray today. That is key number 1. Key number 2, hit the lefty. The Padres facing young left-hander Zach Thornton on the mound today for the Mets. Padres, and again, a lot of this is from the early part of the season when they struggled offensively in general so much, but still, as of today, the Padres do rank 26th in the majors with a 683 OPS against left-handed pitching, getting some pop against lefties. It's been a struggle at times this season. Thornton last pitched on Wednesday in Atlanta, gave up 3 runs in 6 innings. The 24-year-old has had a few different call-ups this season. Since he was recalled in July, he's been very solid, a 2.31 ERA in his last 6 starts. So can the Padres offense figure out a lefty they've never seen before today? That's key number 2. Key number 3, be good against Bichette. Bo Bichette drove in a run with an RBI single yesterday in 15 games during the month of August. Bichette is batting .345 with 10 RBIs and a .940 OPS. This month, he ranks tied for 2nd in hits, in 4th in batting average among National League qualifiers. In fact, in his last 66 games, he's batting .310 with an .806 OPS. And that's a look at our keys to today's game. When we come back, we'll take a look at one more player to keep an eye on in today's game. Plus, we send things out to Jesse and Tony. First pitch coming your way at 4:10 on the Padres Radio Network. EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show continues here on the Padres Radio Network. We send things out to Jesse and Tony in New York City in under 5 minutes. Sam Levitt with you inside our San Diego studios. Let's wrap it up here as we tell you what to watch for in tonight's game.
What's the one thing Sam Levitt will be keeping his eye on in today's game? This is What to Watch For. Presented by Genesis Home Improvements, San Diego's trusted painting, roofing, and window company. Save 15% today on a new beginning for your home. Visit GenesisHomeImprovements.com.
What to watch for in this one, game 2 of this 3-game series in New York. Can the Padres prevent Christopher Morel from having a big Mets debut? And you might be wondering to yourself, Christopher Morel? You mean the former Cub and Tampa Bay Ray? Yeah, that Christopher Morel. He was called up yesterday for the Mets, signed a minor league deal with the Mets in early July, hit .321 with 12 home runs, 29 RBIs in 31 games at AAA Syracuse. Morel has proven power at the big league level, 20 home run seasons in 2023 and 2024. Morel playing first base and batting 6th for the Mets tonight. So keep an eye on Christopher Morel. This is a guy that has certainly had power in the big leagues before. He can hit it out, certainly. So that's what to watch for in today's game. Can the Padres prevent Morel from having a big impact in the second game of this 3-game series? As always, we appreciate you tuning in to the EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show right here on 97.3 The Fan and the Padres Radio Network. Well, a matchup in New York between two of the hottest teams in baseball. Padres have won 17 of their last 23 games. The Mets have won 4 in a row in 10 of their last 13 games. Couple of southpaws going at it tonight in Robbie Ray and rookie left-hander Zach Thornton. When we come back, we send it out to Jesse and Tony. They have the full starting lineups, first pitch, and all the play-by-play. I'll talk to you on our post-game coverage on 97.3 The Fan and the Padres Radio Network. Enjoy the game, everybody.